And then we go from a program that has a brand new coach to one that has been there for quite some time. And obviously, we see this trend all the time with TCU of an up year, a down year, an up year, a down year. When you go to look at this 2021 class in Gary Patterson, we know how good of a recruiter he is as a whole. But what do you see that you enjoy so far from the commits that have signed with the Horned Frogs?
Well, the first thing that we have to talk about is just that it's a small class, right? It's only got they have 13 players who signed a letter of intent. They didn't add anyone from the early signing period until now. So there hasn't been much that's changed from December now until February with what they've done on the recruiting trail. But they've done a good job with that 13 players of especially to me on the defensive side of the football, bringing in guys who can play. And I look at Landon Watson and Chris Murray as the defensive ends, and they're like basically the top two highest rated guys in this class. Landon Watson is a 4-star. Chris Murray is just outside of that, could very easily be a 4-star. They have bring a lot of the same qualities to the table. I like Murray as a little bit more of a pass rusher,
Yes.
and I like Landon Watson as that guy who's just a sure tackler. They're both guys who could be in that outside linebacker, defensive end hybrid type of role. And Landon Watson is one of those guys, when he hits you, you can feel it. Like, you can feel it on your screen, like you can watch this highlight. You're like, oh,
that one hurt.
He's hurting kids. And don't forget, he was committed to LSU fresh off of their national championship. So he was a guy who was highly recruited by a lot of top tier programs, and TCU did a good job to stay involved in that recruitment and sign him. And another guy to keep an eye on from in-state is Jasper Lott. 6'5", 250-pound tight end. I think he could bulk up and play offensive tackle as well if tight end doesn't work out. His dad is the strength and conditioning coach, I believe, for the San Diego Chargers. So they understand all about what it takes off the field to be successful on the field. And I really like that pickup as well. Not in recruiting necessarily, but I gotta say the transfer of Chandler Morris is something that we should probably touch on. That's a big time move for TCU. He's a guy who's going to add great depth to the quarterback room. He's very smart. He's a winner, and a whole lot of fun to watch. He was a DCTF 4-star when he signed with the Oklahoma Sooners, and to get him on the roster, I think, is a big add also for Gary Patterson.
And a native around here, and you talked about, obviously Chandler Morris. You got Highland Park. You've got Jasper Lott at Argyle. I feel like what TCU does so well is reaching out to these kids and getting this DFW talent that might go a little bit underrated if you're looking at an A&M or an Austin, because they're looking at the broader scope. But Gary does a real good job of getting those DFW kids, in my mind, that are just a little underrated.
We're starting a new thing here, Pickle. I love the questions that you're bringing to me, too, because these are things that really need to be talked about, right? What TCU and Gary Patterson have always done well is they evaluate for their system. They don't care if Alabama or LSU or Oklahoma have offered you necessarily. They go out and find guys, and you look at a guy who's projected into the first round of the draft this year, and Trevon Morig Woodard. That's a mouthful, but they go out and recruit those types of guys, right, and turn them into NFL players, and they do it class in and class out. And there's a couple of guys in this class who I think that fit that mold that you should probably keep an eye on if you're a TCU fan, and that's TJ Steele from Lubbock Estacado, a wide receiver who was at one time committed to North Texas, who's a tremendous talent, and Javion Gibson, linebacker from Langham Creek, outside linebacker, who was a longtime Washington State committed to Washington State basically because that was his best offer, and he never even visited there.
Right.
And then when TCU came calling after evaluating his senior tape, and that's a key thing too. I think if Gary Patterson likes your senior tape, I think you got a pretty good shot at being successful, not only in college, but one of those guys we should keep an eye on to develop into an all-conference caliber type of player.
Absolutely, and if anyone can do it, it's going to be Gary.